is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam
And
Shad.
back on Nevada Newsmakers, we are always pleased to welcome back to the program Annette Whittemore. She's the founder and president of the Whittemore Peterson Institute. Pleasure to have you back on the program, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Back in 2009, researchers reported finding XMRV DNA in 2/3 of 101 people with chronic fatigue syndrome, but only in 4% of healthy controls. And this generated worldwide attention with a publication in Science magazine. But since then, the editor of the Journal of Science in June published an expression of concern stating the validity of the study by Lombardi et al. Is now seriously in question. Your thoughts about this, and where did it come from and why?
Well, I think, first of all, I know that there have been quite a few negative studies that have come along after our study, and that's not uncommon in an extraordinary detection and extraordinary discovery that we've had. So I was prepared a little bit for that, but I don't think we were prepared for the continuation of negative studies that have used over and over again the same methods and materials, and of course they're different than the methods and materials that the original Lombardi study used. We were really concerned as well about those negative studies, and we have attempted to write several graphs and describe the differences between these studies. And in fact, we're doing some studies right now side by side to look at those methods, because we believe we can learn quite a bit from the differences and maybe perhaps move the science along.
One of the things that was interesting, I was watching 60 Minutes last night, and there was a piece on memory, and there were also, in talking to the person who was heading up this study, he said that the subject of science is about skepticism, and that it was okay for people to be skeptical, but he said, if you don't believe in what we're doing here, come here and see for yourself. Now, as you pointed out, a lot of these studies that didn't come out with the same results were not done the same way that you had done your studies. Why are people not coming out here and doing that?
That's very interesting. Actually, we have had a couple of researchers come out, and they have learned the techniques, and they have been successful. So there's a difference between actually doing the work and then getting your work published. So we feel that the positive studies take so much longer to do, and they're very, very labor intensive. They're very costly. There isn't a lot of support for it. These individuals are taking time away from their other studies, taking money away from other projects in order to do them. So number one, I think it's a funding issue. Number two, when our researcher has traveled and shown other researchers those methods, they have been successful in their own laboratories. So we've been really encouraged by what we have seen, and we believe that those positive studies will be coming out very soon. So in addition to that, I think everyone needs to know that how encouraged we are by our own studies in our laboratory. And the negative studies originally pointed to all of the ways and various ways that you could have contamination in your laboratory that could cause false results. And we keep letting everyone know that we've done our best, and we'll continue to always do our best to prevent that kind of thing from happening. However, we've decided that it would be better now to focus on the kinds of activities that can eliminate that altogether. So actually we're looking at antibodies right now, and human antibodies cannot be developed against a particular organism within the laboratory. And so I think they're one of the best that particular test is one of the best tests to show that patients indeed have seen this virus and their bodies have responded to it.
What's the relationship between the Institute and the National Institute of Health at this point?
Well, we still have collaborators at the National Cancer Institute who continue to do work on this virus and this illness as well. So we do not have a current study. Well, actually, we have a study on the pathogenesis of chronic fatigue syndrome, which is how all of this came about, and that is an NIH R01 funded study.
Senator Reid obviously was very much involved with your institute. Do you still have his full faith and support?
Absolutely, and he's been fabulous. He's actually very, very supportive of the research that's going on at the University of Nevada and the Whittemore Peterson Institute, and he has been very helpful in helping us attain critical equipment that's needed on the university campus so that we can continue these studies.
All right, let's take a break. More with Annette Whittemore when we come back.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Annette Whittemore, the founder and president of the Whittemore Peterson Institute. As always, a pleasure to have you on the program. Judy Mikovits, your researcher, your head researcher, has stated that XMRV has almost certainly entered the U.S. blood supply system, but did not know whether it would be susceptible to the same heat treatments that successfully kill off the AIDS virus in blood products. How much of a problem and how much of a political problem has this been?
Well, I think right now we are more interested in figuring out exactly what this virus is, and then we'll be looking at the percentages. And we have to have that accurate high throughput test, which is really what's holding up those studies. But we believe that in our initial study, at any rate, that we saw about 4% in the human population in the regular blood supply.
Are there other countries that are looking at their blood supply? And because I believe in the United States that if you are not healthy, you're not supposed to be giving blood, right. But there is no distinction for chronic fatigue syndrome. Is that correct?
Well, there actually is now. They actually do have a question on their questionnaire when you walk in, and they ask that individuals with chronic fatigue syndrome that they do not give blood, they do not donate. This is also the case in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and right now the UK has said that it wouldn't be in the patient's best interest to give blood. So they are recognizing that the individuals are very, very ill, and that's a good thing. I mean, I think for a long time they were looking at it as a psychological illness, and this has been a wonderful change that we've seen, that people are beginning to look at it, the possibility of an infectious origin, and they certainly want to protect both the patient and future blood recipients from any kind of infection.
How is politics literally around the world playing into this?
It's pretty amazing. I always thought that the politics, watching my husband in national politics, Republicans and Democrats, that was as contentious as anything could get. But what we have found, or at least what I have learned, is that politics very much play a role in science and human health. And I suppose that's because there is so much money involved. And certainly there's careers and there's reputations to be built. So I've had some comments like, how in the world did a small laboratory in Nevada that had just begun, a small institute that had just begun, you know, how were they capable of making this kind of discovery? And really, it isn't just one individual, it isn't one institute. You know, we had individuals at the Cleveland Clinic, we had scientists at the National Cancer Institute that were also helping. But we have an extraordinary community here in Reno, Nevada that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, and some fabulous researchers at the university who are also lending their support to this.
I'm going to ask you an open-ended question. Your thoughts on the CDC in reference to this?
Yep. I think it's taken them a very, very long time to get on board. Right now, they're involved in the blood working group to determine the best detection methods. I believe that ultimately we will come to a consensus, and we're very, very hopeful that at some point one of their researchers will come out to the Whittemore Peterson Institute and be able to work with us and come to at least take a look at the discrepancies and come up with the best test.
So they haven't come out so far?
No, they've had 3 negative papers, I believe, still using other methods and other procedures. So until we can agree on the best methods, it makes it very, very difficult to come up with the same results.
All right, for people who are watching, and every time you're on the program, people from around the world literally bombard our website to hear what you have to say. Tell us about the ongoing work at the Institute.
Well, we're really very, very encouraged, and the biggest encouragement has to do with our studies, as I said, in the antibody responses and refining those tests, staying away from tests that have a tendency to cause or create that problem with contamination that they're so worried about. And working with scientists right now to deep sequence this virus. No one's really seen the entire virus or sequenced all of it. Our scientists have sequenced what they can and are still convinced that it is a human gamma retrovirus that they're looking at. But we would love to see the entire length of that virus, and it's just a little bit of ways. We're so encouraged that things are coming along and that we will have more answers in a very short period of time.
Did you ever think in your life that you would become an expert on this topic?
No, and I certainly don't consider myself an expert at all. And I do want everyone to know, too, that there are so many other good studies that are going on. We're looking for footprints around that virus, the kinds of things such as immune discrepancies and deficiencies in the patients who we find positive. Inflammatory biomarkers. We're still on that path, trying to develop those biomedical markers that will allow physicians to actually diagnose these patients and then seek appropriate treatments.
There's an international workshop was convened back in September 2010 to aid in resolving these discrepancies, and at that meeting it was announced that Ian Lipkin would oversee a multi-center trial that will culminate in the blind testing of 150 CFS patients and 150 healthy but comparable donors. And he is coming out to speak at your institute this week.
Actually, he is. This Friday he's coming out, and he's going to be giving
the 24th.
The 24th, around 1 o'clock at the Whittemore Peterson Institute. He will be putting on a presentation called Microbe Hunting. He has over 30 years of experience in this field, and you know, it's interesting, we had reached out to him in the very, very early days, and our researchers talked to him and said, this is what we're doing. He said, you sound like you've got a handle on it. I'm happy to help if I can, but at this point I think, you know, you need to go forward with your methods. He certainly has some incredible experiences and discoveries, over 400, and so we're excited to get the opportunity to get a chance to talk to him privately, show him around our laboratories and ask him questions. Okay, so it's this Friday, June 24th at 1 p.m. at the Whittemore Peterson Institute, which is on the grounds of the University of Nevada. That's right. And they can Google you and contact you to find out more information. Yes. You know, you obviously have a personal stake in this, as most people who head up organizations like this. Your daughter Andrea has suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome for many years. How does she feel about the response? Well, you know, one of the things, I think one of the things she feels is that it's hard for her to understand when they become personal, and when the attacks become personal, or when there's a lot of contentious remarks. However, she's really excited about the science because it has impacted her personally, and it has impacted her treatment. So Andrea is doing better, and that is the most wonderful news. Certainly, we started this both to help her and to help many, many other people like Andrea, and we really do believe that we're getting closer and closer all the time. Our best wishes as always. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you for having me. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this timeout.